Okay. Start off, obvious question. Why did you put your letter in the paper?
I'm a proud American, and I'm tired of seeing this country get ripped off by every nation practically in the world. When I look at Japan as an example, and I love the Japanese people, I do a lot of business with the Japanese people, but they've taken advantage of the United States. We're defending Japan. Japan right now is far and away the wealthiest country in the world. We're defending Japan, and it doesn't make sense. We're bringing ships through the Persian Gulf. We're paying for it. The oil is going to Japan. They get 60 to 70% of their oil from Japan. We get 4 to 5%. We really don't need it. Why isn't Japan contributing? Why isn't Saudi Arabia? Why isn't Kuwait contributing big, big, big money toward their defense? It doesn't make sense.
On the same subject, what about the idea that as a superpower we have obligations to protect freedom of navigation, all the other obligations that come along with it that don't necessarily reap material benefits for the U.S. but has another higher responsibility?
We have absolute obligations to protect freedom, but we don't have obligations to protect freedom of countries that are far wealthier than we are. This country loses $200 billion a year, much of it because of the competition that we have with Japan and other countries that are very effective. This country is losing $200 billion a year. Other countries are making hundreds of billions of dollars. We're losing because of the defense. We are defending everybody. We can't defend everybody. Eventually, everything's going to blow because this country is essentially a bankrupt country. Japan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, these very, very wealthy countries that we're protecting should pay for their own defense. They should pay us for the defense, or they should defend themselves. I want to help. I recommend helping, but we should be reimbursed for the costs of this defense.
What do you mean by our country's a bankrupt country?
We're losing the United States is losing $200 billion a year. $200 billion we're losing in this country. As simple as that. If this were a company, they would have filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings years ago. This country is losing so much money that there's a question as to how much longer it can continue. And there's a real question. The crystal ball is eventually going to explode. And there's no reason for it. Japan should pay us for defending them. We're taking tankers through the Persian Gulf to go to Japan so that Japan can generate tremendous industry in its country so that they can sell cars and everything else to America and essentially really hurt the American economy. I'm not opposed to free trade. I'm only saying that when it comes to the billions and hundreds of billions of dollars that we're spending to defend other countries that are very capable of paying for that defense themselves, then we should be reimbursed for that money.
So the $200 billion, you're really talking about trade deficits?
We're talking about huge trade deficits. I mean, you can't continue to run a company or a country and lose $200 billion a year, and that's what we're doing, and it's going to go up.
Switching the subject a little bit, so basically the main reason why you wrote this or put it in the paper was just a strong feeling. It wasn't a political aspiration or a publicity thing. It was, this is how you feel, or...
I feel very strongly and know for a fact that the United States is being ripped off by so many countries that can well afford to pay the United States for the services, at least partially, for the services that the United States renders. If a company or a country ever ran the way the United States is running, forget it. Only the United States can actually get away with it in the true sense. The United States is the greatest of all nations. The United States is being taken advantage of by too many countries and people. And we have to be reimbursed by these extremely wealthy money machines, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and if we're not, we're fools. We're fools. And I don't like being called a fool, and I hope our leaders don't like being called fools, but right now this country is in shambles. It's losing $200 billion so that we can fuel the economy of Japan and other countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, so many others, and there's no reason for it. There's no reason. If asked, and asked firmly, they will pay.
What about your political aspirations? They've been bantered about in the papers a little bit. Do you have any?
I have zero political aspiration. I run a company. I believe I do it better than anyone. I enjoy what I do. I deal with all of the same people that we're talking about. I deal with the Saudis. I deal with the Japanese. I don't think anybody sells much more real estate than I do to the Japanese, the Saudis, etc. They buy the most expensive apartments in the world that I happen to build. And I know the people, and I like the people. But that doesn't get away from the fact that this country is being totally ripped off by foreign countries, many of whom I deal with. And I think it's very unfortunate for the United States.
You're going out to New Hampshire in October, obviously. There's somebody there pushing you to run for the presidency. Why are you doing this?
Well, I had heard 2 weeks ago that they're pushing, and they're very much pushing to have Trump run for the presidency. I'm not interested in running for the presidency. I'm greatly honored. The man that's doing it is a highly respected man who's been responsible for a lot of people's success. And I am honored. I'm not interested in running for the presidency.
There was a great push for a New York office, whether it be mayor or to Senate, and there was a lot of push. Is that something that at some time in the future you'd be interested in, or?
I have zero interest in running for political office. I love what I do, and I really believe I do it better than anyone else, and I think the track record shows that. But if I can point out the deficiencies in the way our system is going, if I can point out certain stupidities, because that's really what it is, it's a lack of common sense and a lack of business sense that we're defending countries that are essentially far wealthier than we are, based on a current balance sheet. If I can point that out, and if somebody will act and do something about it, I've done a great service to the country, and that's what I want to do.
I think that's it, unless you want to go over something that we didn't cover, or you want to restate.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Good luck.
We're done.
I'll watch. It's on tonight.
Strong opinions on anything.
That's especially politicians.
That's right.
They have. I watch these guys. They talk. That's why that's the problem.
Yep.
They don't want to offend anybody,
That's right, because they won't talk about it.
including other nations.
That's right.
It's just incredible.
Mr. Trump, could I just get you listening?
Yeah, sure.
So it might be on tonight. I can't tell you who's even doing the piece, because when I left